soon as this finishes.
Please announce yourself.
All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the mission statement of the Charter School Advisory Board is as follows. The Charter Schools Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. Our ethics statement, board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. All right, if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. All right, we're going to jump right on into the interviews here, and I'll take over and lead these, or lead Mr. Quigley's review this morning. So, Danielle.
Good morning, Vice Chair Walker, Committee Co-Chair Kakadelis, and all respective members of the board. Today we are conducting 3 full interviews. The applicant group appearing before you today is Elaine Riddick Charter. They're proposing to locate in Perquimans County. Their proposed grade levels and projected student enrollment are as follows. Year 1, K through 3, 120 students. Year 2, K through 4, 156 students. Year 3, K through 5, 200 students. Year 4, K through 6, 220 students. Year 5, K through 7, 250 students. We do have an LEA impact statement submitted for this applicant. We do not have due diligence completed. Pass-fail ratings are as follows. Mission, purposes, and goals, 4 pass, 1 fail. Education plan, 3 pass, 2 fail. Governance and capacity, all fail. Operations, 3 pass, 2 fail. Finance, all fail. This applicant is requesting an acceleration. They are not a repeat applicant. They did receive assistance from Torchlight Academy Schools and intend to partner with this group. Regarding RTO participation, Elaine Riddick had 2 individuals registered in October, but neither of them attended. The school had 1 individual registered in November, but she did not attend. In December, 2 individuals attended for about an hour total. You want to introduce yourself?
All right, you can introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump into the application.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning. My name is Tony Riddick. I'm born and raised in Perquimans County, North Carolina. I'm the very proud son of Elaine Riddick, who was sterilized by the state of North Carolina at the age of 14. She had absolutely no knowledge of the sterilization until 5 years later. The state took away her right to choose. They took that away from her. In 2019, in Perquimans County, we're confronted with the question of choice all over again. 30% of blacks in Perquimans County are grade proficient. Only 60% of whites in Perquimans County are grade proficient. All of these numbers are horrible, but what we know is that parents want the right to choose. Councilman Aples could not be with us today. He's one of the board members. He was subpoenaed to go to court. He has 21 years of military discipline experience. He has 17 years of international and global travel. He just couldn't be with us today. I personally bring to you 30 years of semiconductor technology experience in semiconductor engineering, experience in semiconductor training. The training would consist of me going into some of the largest semiconductor facilities in the world, Intel, IBM, AMD, Motorola, and I would introduce new technology to these facilities. Now, I also started and operated a multi-million-dollar company, although I came out of Pacoimians County. I did that for several years. With that being said, I'd like to introduce our board chair, Mary Felton.
Good morning. I was born and raised in Pacoimians County by my grandmother, and despite repeating the 4th grade, I stand here today as a PhD candidate in educational leadership. I stand here today as a published author. I stand here today as a school administrator. I stand here today licensed as a superintendent, principal, and curriculum instructional specialist. I was tenured while teaching at Pacoimians County High School in the year of 2004. I am currently serving as an educational consultant for Three Rivers Academy, which is a charter school. It is my belief that every child should have choice. I had a choice. I think every child should have the opportunity to be adequately prepared to accomplish their dreams. I had that opportunity. This board stands here today willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that every child has the opportunity to achieve their dreams and to become a productive citizen and give back to their community. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dr. Hortense Dodo. I am a university professor, a molecular biologist, a food scientist, and a scientific entrepreneur. I taught for almost 20 years at Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama, and I was the director of a food biotechnology lab. And in that capacity, I had a chance to train and perform hands-on research for not only students at the bachelor, master, and PhD level, but I also had a chance to train students from the K-12 who were coming to our lab throughout the year. I am currently the president of Ingatejin LLC, a biotechnology company that is located in Pasquotank County, one of the counties that we're working with. This company is focusing on developing an allergen-free peanuts for children who are allergic to peanuts and to provide one solution to this worldwide problem of peanut allergy. I am also an international scientific envoy for the US Department of State, where they will send me to various countries every year to teach and perform research in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for the youth, but mostly for young girls to encourage them to adopt the scientific field. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Dr. Kofi Konan. I think our team here in the school will benefit from my experience as a teacher at the college level, and both at Alabama A&M and at Fayetteville State. And also I need to note that I have trained many high school students in STEM, and this is to prepare them for the college studies. And this is mostly done through grants that I personally write, and I'm still writing. And this also, I think, this grant writing capacity is another asset for the team. Now, also this grant allow me to travel with students abroad, meaning that in countries such as Brazil, China, and everywhere, and to get this kid involved in this worldwide movement of global science network, which is calling for multicultural interaction in solving some of our problems here. Thank you.
All right. We can get into the application and any questions that anybody has. Anybody have any initial thoughts or initial questions that they would like to ask?
I wasn't here for clarification, so this may have gotten clarified in the clarification, but there are some discrepancies in the numbers. Like, so in the beginning in the app where you have the chart, it says 122,250, but in the app later on, it says that in year 5, they'll have 342. In the beginning of the app, it says they're going to start at K3, but later in the app, it says when they start as K4. So what exactly are they going to do?
Yeah, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at into the, you know, the school. In the start of the app, it has Perquimans and Pasquotank, but I think when you get down into the budget, there's only one LEA, and so there may be understated revenues there, and so I think that's something that we need to address too. Anybody from the board want to address that question, and then we'll move on to the next question? To give us some.
I have a very difficult time hearing. My ears are ringing, have been for 2 weeks. Can you please repeat that a little louder?
Sure. Basically, some of the discrepancies in the enrollment numbers in the application, the enrollment numbers seem to be one thing and the grade level seem to be one thing at the start of the application. But then as the application progresses, instead of starting K3, it's K4. And then the enrollment numbers kind of change through there. And then in the beginning parts, it talks about having being in Perquimans and also drawing students from Pasquotank County.
Okay.
And then when you get down into the budget, you know, you're only seeing Perquimans there. If I remember correctly, I'm trying to get the
I'm going to try to address
pull
that.
up.
Here's what, and add to it a little bit. Here's what we learned. We had an initial meeting in August, a meet and greet, inviting the community out. We had a great turnout. We had nearly 60 people at that meeting. We started getting phone calls from other counties, Pasquotank, Chowan County. And the reason why they were calling is because for 12 years now, we've been putting on our summer program in Paquimans County. The summer program consisted of math camp, where for 6 weeks, when the kids are out of school, we take them through math training at no expense. The other part of it was a reading camp, where we put them through a reading camp for 6 weeks. Many of these students were coming from other counties. So initially, when we submitted the paperwork, it was primarily based upon what we were seeing, the activity that we were seeing in Paquimans County. But afterwards, we started to get an increase of inquiries from people from other counties. And that may be why you started seeing some of the numbers change based on that inquiry that we were getting from other counties, because people from other counties were excited that we were starting to move towards a charter school because they were very pleased with the results that they were seeing with their children in our summer program.
See, and this is where it gets confusing,
Yeah, 'cause-
because the budget's based off of 100 students, but at the start of the application, it's 120. So then you end up with a surplus of $8,000, but you're 20 students short off what your max ADM is.
And-
Okay,
and the app-
So it caused some issue. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I was just going to say, the application should be consistent. Whatever numbers you take, the application should be consistent all the way through.
Absolutely.
And it's not.
Okay, let's have Hortense to address that some more.
Yes, just one point. In our clarification document, we noticed, we mentioned that there was an error that was included. The actual number is 120, and by error, we wrote 100. So that was a mistake that was cleared up in the clarification document.
Okay, then throughout the application, you talk about several counties, drawing students from several counties. But then when you get to the revenue chart, you only have students coming from one county.
So did you say in your clarification documents, do you have another budget that's in the clarification documents?
Correct.
It's on eBoard.
Okay, so it's on eBoard. So let's give us a second to pull that up. But while we're doing that, I have a question that relates to acceleration. Part of the requirements of acceleration is that the school agrees to attend all the ready to open things. How come somebody from the board, how come there's been registration for people of the board, but then the people from the board not attending the Ready to Open meetings?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Sure.
Get closer.
There's, one of the requirements to accelerate is that the board attends all of the Ready to Open meetings during the application, the pendency of the application. And as we found out, y'all had people registered to attend, but nobody actually attended the Ready to Open meetings. And so I wanted to kind of find out why that is, because that's really a bar to being able to accelerate. That's one of the things you have to do to accelerate, and without that, you're just ineligible to accelerate.
I don't remember the exact, so 100%, but we did have a representative from Durham that came to the meeting that you're speaking of that was registered. And he actually registered under my name. He was there. Len Graham was actually at that meeting. So that particular day, this is the case that we're speaking of, right?
Can't read the budget, it's so small.
You had a meeting that day that you could cancel.
Right.
It's more than one meeting.
Can I consult my management company for a second, please?
Yeah, that'll be fine. I mean, I just, it was multiple meetings.
Sure.
That there were people registered for, but haven't attended. So who on the board that's here has attended a Ready to Open meeting?
I was at that meeting, but also let me say something else. Someone just read that we were only at a meeting for an hour. This is not correct. That meeting that you're speaking of that we were at for an hour, we actually came and presented to the reviewers and went back down to the meeting, and we were at that meeting prior to. So we were there for more than an hour. It was read that 2 people attended for 1 hour. We're actually there longer than that. We came up to the review meeting and then went back down. That other meeting, I'm not quite clear on.
Still just one.
So I need some refreshing.
There was a meeting that you couldn't, and you sent someone to represent you at this other meeting speaking.
Okay. Now, okay.
But all the other ones, there was someone.
Someone was, right, I get it now. I was not at that meeting, you're correct, because I had a legal issue, and that's when I asked Len Graham to come and sit in for me at that meeting.
Dr. Williams, who oversees the RTO process, is here, and so she can give more detail about the sign-in sheets that she has and the information that she provided to me.
Okay, yeah, let's hear from Dr. Williams. Yeah, we're going to let Dr. Williams, she's got.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning. I have the sign-in sheets, and at this juncture, all we can go on is what's on our sign-in sheet. So for the October 31st RTO session, there were 2 people registered, but neither of them signed in. For the November session, there was 1 person registered, but she did not sign in. For the December session, there was 1 person registered. That person did not sign in, but 2 other people did sign in, but were actually only in the room for about a total of an hour throughout the course of the day.
Was that the same day they had the clarification interview?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we probably had something to do with them not being in there the whole time.
It's 3 others.
Yeah, but
The other ones.
Right. I think we can move on from that, and let's focus in more on the application now. Mr. Friend?
Well, I have a question that also pertains to qualification for acceleration, and one of the acceleration requirements is around facility. I just want to make sure that I don't have the wrong, I'm looking at their application, I don't see anything in the section of facility or facility contingency that was answered.
There's something in the acceleration part where they talk about facility. I think it says they have a facility, but it requires some upfit.
Yeah, could you talk to us a little bit about your facility?
Absolutely. We have several options for facilities. There's one building that's 30,000 square feet that we're in negotiation. We've already came to an agreement that if we approve, we can lease that building, no problem. It's contingent upon the approval. There's another building, the former library in Paquimins County, that we're negotiating with as well. We're negotiating, trying to get that building. The last result is that I have a facility of my own, my office that I work in every single day. This office is also the office that we do our summer training program in. Well, we may average 60 kids in math, 60 kids in science. This facility can also be used to quick start our charter school. So the facilities is not an issue.
Do you have a certificate of occupancy for education purposes in that building?
I do not have an official certificate, but that's something that we can get. We don't have an official certificate, but we can go through the process because the building is used for business, and also we use it during the summertime for our summer educational programs. Getting the approval should not be an issue. So the building we have.
Did you find the budget in the?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
looking at
it's
it.
on the e-board.
But I still don't
I mean,
see
we can
multiple.
also
The numbers are the numbers have changed to add 20 more students. I mean, you can tell there's 20 more students in that new building.
for Perquimans, right? Still
For-
all from Perquimans.
I don't
Yeah,
see.
see per pupil up above the income projections. Per pupil state, EC state and county for Perquimans County.
Which page is that on? Because
It's on the e-board in the
pulled it
in the
up.
clarification document. I don't see a page number, but it looks like it's the last page of that
Last
document.
one? Okay.
I would imagine that the county funding is pretty
It's
similar
about the same.
between those.
Can
two
I add
counties.
something else about the facility while you guys are looking into what you're
Yes.
looking into? Also, for 8 years, I ran and operated a company called T-Square Developers that developed real estate throughout Paquimish County. I did that for about 8 years. That was my other business. So even if we had to make adjustments, upfitting to our building, it's absolutely no problem whatsoever because we have the experience. Not only do we have the experience in doing the work, we are very experienced in taking measures necessarily to reduce costs. So the building is not an issue because I own the building. In worst case, we would have to do some upfitting.
And I know you could easily get it ready. It's just, some of us have worked with the county to get the certificates.
Little louder, I can't hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's sometimes can be difficult working with other government agencies to get that certificate of occupancy. It's not as easy as it might sound.
Can you give me an example of the difficulty, please?
Well, they'll find things and you won't get your certificate of occupancy. We had a charter school last year that couldn't get a certificate of occupancy, and we've had to revoke their charter because they've had all kinds of problems with that. And when it started out, they said no problem. And that was even, I think they had a year delay, if I'm not mistaken. They had a year delay, and it was just very difficult. And we can give you other examples.
I can't speak to that specific facility, but what I can tell you is that because of our experience with real estate development, building houses and contracting, this should not be a barrier that should permit us from moving our kids forward and giving them a choice in Paquimish County. At the end of the day, we need to do something desperately to impact this epidemic in the United States of America. And we stand here as a board telling you that we can help impact that process. And we should not let a building stop us from doing that.
And I am in total agreement with you. I just know that it's happened.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You asked for an example. I'll give you an example, and I don't think anyone around the table would disagree with your comment about the need for choice and the value that brings to families. But there are also just physical structure and government regulations you have to meet. I was part of a team that built a 40,000 square foot facility a year and a half ago from the ground up with close to 415 students. And 1 week before the facility was to house those students, we got notice that we would not get a CO because our ramps to the facility were 3/4 of an inch too high. That's an example of something that you just have to be aware of, control, that you don't control, that can pop up. And I think that's just what we're trying to point out, is that it's not as easy as just to say, we have a facility, it won't be an issue. Because we had architects who have experience in building schools that was an example that came up, and that was just one of many examples. that
Mr.
came
Friend,
up.
I'd like to, let me come back to you. This is very important to us, as you very well know. If the building is not sufficient, I personally own lots around the building. We'll put trailers on the lots. But what I want to emphasize and reiterate here again, nothing is going to stop us from moving forward with this charter school. There are too many kids suffering in Paquimins County and neighboring counties. I give you another stat. In Pasquotank alone, I told you this last meeting, 4 out of 7 schools are either an E or an F. Now, we can't stand here before you and even start to accept that a building is going to prevent us from moving forward. Listen, I'm sorry. We started the program 12 years ago. We did not come here asking the board anything because we recognize the urgency. We recognize the call of duty. We brought professionals together and started mentoring and educating our children at our own expense. Now, whether you approve us or not is irrelevant at this point. We're going to move forward. Thank you.
And I don't think that anybody's saying that the facility is, we're talking about an accelerated process.
Sure.
And that's the thing, you know, there's a difference between opening a school and having the school going and having a year to make sure that the facility's there and that you get the CO and everything that you need. I think and I'm all for, you know, accelerating the school when we know that the school can have everything ready. And I think that's where the questions from facility comes from, is that generally, you know, the requirement is that you have an identified facility and that there is a signed lease that's contingent upon the approval, and that there would be, if there was anything that it would take to get the occupational or the certificate of occupation that is for education, that it would be something that would be minor that would need to be done. And I think that's where these questions are coming from. Not that I don't think anybody on the board has ever. I mean, we've approved schools before that have said we think we can find a building in the next 12 months. I mean, that's not what it is. It's when you ask for an acceleration. What we're asking for is we're asking, you know, that you have the building ready, because we have just in the experience of this board, we have had probably 30% of the schools that we've approved over the last 3 years, because of the climate of the way things are with building and the way that government regulates and the transportation and all that we've had schools that have come back to us and said, hey, we need another year. We need an extra year to get our facility ready. And so that's why, to be eligible for acceleration, that one of the things you have to have is you've got to have the facility locked down, because the last thing that we want to do, and at least from my perspective, if we have a school that's approved for acceleration and they come in 6 months later and say we need a 1-year delay because we don't have a facility ready, I mean, the answer is going to be no from me. I mean, because if you want to accelerate, that means you've got the facility ready, you've got everything ready. But I want us to be able to move away from acceleration now and start really focusing in on the substance of the application as well.
Excuse me, I would just like to say that Three Rivers Academy, where I'm currently serving as a consultant, I was there and I witnessed that process, and they were able to do what needed to be done and open. And the building that they are currently in, that building had been closed for a number of years, and they were able to come in and they were able to do what needs to be done. This building has not been closed for the number of years. And so I'm here to say I've seen the process, and I think we have the same ability to do what I've already witnessed that has been done. And they are open and they are operating, because I'm there, I know.
All right, thank you. Let's move on in and talk about mission. Anybody have any questions on the mission, purposes, and goals? I found the goals to be reasonable and attainable, but not too low given the scores of the area. That they were something that were reasonable, and they said, okay, this is something that we can work on. Anybody have any questions related to the mission, purposes, and goals?
I'm not sure this is where this goes, but the data talks about the need, and there seems to be a real need for middle school, not as big a need for elementary, but they're starting at elementary, which seems to be a mismatch.
I will address that. Based on the data that we focused on. Yes, there was an emphasis, but when you look at foundations, the elementary is the foundation to the middle school. And what we wanted to do, if you look at our clarification documents, we express those reasons. If you look at the performance at the middle school is based on the students being able to transfer knowledge, to build upon those foundational concepts. And that's why we wanted to start in at the elementary level and build up. And if you notice, we're going to add a grade level each year. In our clarification documents, we indicated information that would speak to that. Some of the reviewers requested clarification of the integration of the programs named in our curriculum. Our review of the curriculum embraces 4 separate components, including the standards, the content, instructional methods, teaching strategies, and assessments. Our reference to the North Carolina Standards Course of Study, Common Core Standards, and the Core Knowledge sequence refers to standards. These standards are individual learning objectives. The school will draw from selected standards from each of these named programs. Our reference to Teach Like a Champion, Active-Based Learning, Success Academy Charter Schools are instructional methods and strategies. And we will begin that from the beginning, kindergarten. And by the time they're in middle school, we wouldn't see that gap. That's what we think.
I think you referenced, and you referenced these that, it's the North Carolina Central State Standards, the Common Core, Core Knowledge, STEAM, Success Academy, Teach Like a Champion, Think. And I was just wondering how kind of those mix together to use. And then also along that same line, do you have, I haven't seen many schools that say they're going to do Common Core and Core Knowledge, because those things seem at least somewhat, I guess opposed isn't the right word, but how would that work together, that you would do a core knowledge sequence and in Common Core together?
Speaking to the needs of the students, and we would not focus in on one particular program, but we would base our instructional strategies to the needs of the students. That's where differentiation instruction comes in, to build the background knowledge, to make sure that student has the essential questions, the vocabulary. So we're not focusing in on one particular program, but a number of programs to be able to differentiate instructions and to meet the needs of the students, because we're focusing on personalizing education for each student.
Any other questions on education plan? All right, well then we can move into the governance and capacity. I felt like the board had a good mix of professional and educational background. I think they're just, and we've already talked about this, so I don't want to feed a fed horse. That's what PETA told us we should say from now on. Instead of beat a dead horse, we should say feed a fed horse. So I don't want to feed a fed horse to talk about the, kind of the differences in the, in the enrollment numbers as we go through in the counties. I think in what you got in the clarification kind of helps to work that out. But Linda Lynn.
Going back to the education plan, has any of the board members gone to New York and visited one of the success schools? Success academies?
A Torchlight School.
I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat the question?
Has the board visited any of the success academies in New York?
We have not physically been there, but we have researched utilizing technology in today's time. You don't have to physically drive anywhere. You can just, it's a tap of a button. But we've done the research, and they've been very successful, and that's one of the reasons we selected to model after that particular, and to take some of the initiatives, because they have been successful with the student population that is similar to the population that we are asking to serve.
Can you tell me a Success Academy that's in a rural area in the country?
Well, the Success Academy resources that we're utilizing, the point that we're making is the population that is socioeconomically disadvantaged, the same as ours, they are successful. And the resources are available. That's saving us financially because we have all of these resources available to us by way of open portal. And if they're successful, then I think we should very well utilize what's available, and it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money.
Right. My concern is that it is a model, a very successful model, but I am not aware of it being used in rural areas. It's an urban model.
Well, usually economically disadvantaged populations in rural areas, I mean, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, that is the common denominator, but their cultures are very, very different. I mean,
well, that's one of the other reasons I indicated that we would be pulling from different programs and different resources that I named. You know, for example, Teach Like a Champion, that was one that I mentioned also. I also indicated that we would not be adopting just one, but we are looking at personalizing education. One size does not fit all, so we're not saying that that's the only resource that we will use.
I'd like to add just a quick note to that. And we're mindful that we're working with Torchlight Academy, right? So as a management company, and for the past 3 years, they've exceeded our requirements. They've exceeded. And the populations that we're going to be dealing with are very similar to what they're dealing with. And so about 95% of your students are about disadvantaged, right? 95% are disadvantaged. So the system that they have been very successful with for the past 3 years in terms of exceeding requirements is also a system that we're monitoring and employ at our charter school as well. Not to mention that overall that we're dealing with 17 years of experience in managing charter school. So, thank you.
And I would just like to reiterate in our clarification documents, we did state that it is not our intent or desire to replicate the Success Academy Charter School, but naming these programs is intended to illustrate just a few instructional strategies and methods which will be used by our teachers to include even on our professional development.
Okay.
Are you replicating Torchlight?
We are utilizing the services, the strategies, the professional development, what works. We have evidence that what they're doing is working, because we have years of data that indicates that they have met and their students.
Are you replicating them?
Yes, of course.
Our management company.
Replication is a wrong term, it's not a replication.
I'm sorry, what did he say?
Just copy it. Yeah, Mr. McQueen, Mr. McQueen, you can come up to the microphone and explain that.
Thanks.
Unless there's objection.
Thank you. No, it is not a replication. It is looking at some of the best practices, some of the things that we have done to be successful. We believe that if we employ these type of strategies in the rural areas, that they will work as they have worked in the urban areas. We don't see that there's much of a difference at this point. We're now working at Three Rivers Academy. The other school we manage is in a rural area in Rowan County, SEMA, and we're looking to see what those results will yield using many of the same strategies, techniques that we have. Yes.
And Mr. McQueen, that's exactly my point,
Yes,
and that's a concern I have.
Yes.
Is that I really want to see what the results are going to be in those two rural areas.
Yes.
I just want to see a little bit of data.
Yes.
Because I moved from Charlotte to Wadesboro in the last 2 years.
Okay.
It's a huge difference.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Huge,
ma'am.
and I know you're experiencing it.
Yes. So, I remind my teachers many times that we're not in a perfect, we're in a practice. So this is a teaching professional, it's a teaching practice, just like a medical practice, just like a legal practice. So unfortunately, sometimes our practices are our students and our teachers, and we have to kind of wait to see what those results, what they will yield. Right now, we think we're getting the kinds of results that we have seen with Torchlight. And so I'm like you, ma'am. We're doing our absolute best to see what those results will turn out to be. But we have to make a start, because what they're doing right now is not been effective.
Right.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
I want you to know from my heart how much I appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
And especially in Three Rivers, you had everything against you there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm dying to see what the results are.
Yes, ma'am. We know
I know
that
you are
we're
too.
working very hard. It's a little tense right now and a little intense right now, but we're working very hard to prove this board correct.
All right, I think
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Reeves has got a question for you,
For Mr.
Mr. McQueen. I think she's got a question that I have one question for you, and then we'll let the board get back to
Yes, sir.
talking. And we've got about 7 minutes left in Q&A.
Okay. With the partnership with Torchlight as the CMO, what is going to be your daily contact with the school? Because while we know your history with your schools, this board is not you.
That's right.
And how is Torchlight going to be affecting the day-to-day operations with education and et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. We are working with myself. I will be there on a regular basis. I am usually at most of the other schools about a couple times a week. But we also have tremendous support staff that's been tremendously effective. Our special ed director for Torchlight Academy is award-winning, Ms. Andrews. All of her accolades, she's given us perfect, pretty much audits on our special ed. We think that's extremely important. Our transportation director has been effective in making sure that all of our drivers have the CDLs. They met all the qualifications and the like, and so we're kind of duplicating some of those good people. Our free and reduced lunch program, which we plan to have that program in all the schools. All of our ratings from the health department has been either a 98 or a 99. We have 100% serve safe or safe serve in our staff. So there's a standard that is set that we're going to employ and model, that we will keep that consistency going forward. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yes, sir.
And it could be to you or any member of the board. As I'm looking at the budget, what's the financial arrangement between the board and Torchlight? Because in the budget, I'm looking at, it has for 5 years, $0 going to the management company.
Yes. So what we, of course, I don't know if that's accurate. Is that the first? Is that the latest
budget I'm looking at it's on page 89. I don't know if anyone wants to see this.
When I was reading through and looking at the agreement, it looks like it's an NHA type model where the revenues go to the management company, the managed company pays the bills,
Okay.
and then what's left over is the management company's
that's exactly right.
fee. And so you really, it's hard to estimate what that fee is. So make sure that the school gets
Yes.
school gets what they need first.
The schools is to be served first and foremost. And so what happens, Bruce, and I thank you, Stephen, because this continues to become a question because we are managers at risk. And so we don't put a projection in there for what the management company will receive. It is based on what the results are after we've managed the school year after year.
Do you have a sense from other schools that you've managed what percentage of the ADM is actually being charged, that the management company is actually keeping for its services?
What percentage of the ADM,
Yeah.
the revenue? We suspect somewhere between 7 and 15%. Some projections somewhere around there. Yes, sir.
And with the fund balance, what percentage is the school allowed to keep?
The school is contractually 3%. They will keep the 3% of the fund balance each year.
That's how they build their fund balance.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
just have
Ms.
one
Gibbs.
question. I was looking at the salaries. Do you think you're going to be able to
principal.
recruit a lot of teachers and personnel at the salaries you have here?
Well, we realize this, the salary is going to be a question. I think, does someone on the board want to answer that? Dr. Dodo? Mary?
I think the
Do
club
you have any
teachers are,
commitments so far?
Regarding the salaries, we indicated that we will be focusing on beginning teachers and retired teachers, and that is one of the reasons that we submitted that information. I'm sure you're aware you would want to offer the same salary to a beginning teacher as an experienced teacher. So, just looking at utilizing our funds in the best possible way. So that was one of the justifications for that.
Well, but the lead administrator, which you're going to need an absolute strong administrator for this school at 50,000, I don't know who you're going to attract to Perquimans. I mean,
Do you have somebody in mind?
Well, we've discussed some options. So, that's something that we're still discussing. But we believe that there are still people who are not just looking at the dollar and looking at giving back to the community. And I think we would be able to find someone. I believe we would.
Grimes right now is earning $50,000.
Dr. Grimes at Three Rivers Academy accepted that position for $50,000. So I'm sure we will be able to find someone. And I would like to quickly mention, I have a granddaughter. She attended P.W. Moore, which was one of the schools that received a low grade. But I have in my hand my granddaughter's scores, and she scored a level 4 in reading and a level 5 in math, and she's now at the middle school and has been inducted into the middle school honor society. So that's evidence that these students, they can achieve, and we plan to bring those types of scores to our school as well.
and I will just, Perquimans isn't by any stretch the poorest county in North Carolina, but the median household income is $45,000 in Perquimans County. So,
and stuff.
yeah. So I mean, if you got $50,000 puts you, at least you're, that administrator be making more than half the households in the county.
Yeah.
Not that, I still think 50,000 is a little low, but I'm not saying that you just absolutely couldn't find somebody.
really dedicated to the school.
Yeah, it'd have to be somebody with some
local.
passion.
And somebody local.
Somebody local. Yeah, I think you have a tough time getting somebody to move from, Wake or Durham or whatever to do it. But yeah, we've got to move on. We've got just a few minutes left here for questions, and so and actually I said the wrong thing. I think I said 7 minutes earlier when I meant 12 minutes. We've got 5 minutes left on Q&A here. Any other questions, burning questions that people have?
Well, I have one question. Since they did not attend those meetings, what would they have to do before
Acceleration
getting
now.
ready if we wanted to give them
Acceleration. Yeah, I don't know what we would do.
Determine that first.
those
Determine
meetings that
acceleration.
Yeah, I think we'd have to determine acceleration first, and I don't know what you would do, to kind of make that up. And I think we can talk about that. What the pleasure of the board is. And I think there's some confusion about that. Linda Lynn?
I'm just struggling with acceleration on various areas. But I'm going to be very honest. I am concerned that anyone on the board would think I am number one, and let me speak loud here, that anyone on the board thinks, number one, I am not for school choice. Just Google my name.
We know you are.
Okay, good. I cannot be any stronger for school choice. I could not be any stronger that this needs to happen in this county.
Sure.
And it needs to happen as fast as possible. Okay? I cannot support acceleration for this school right now. I just can't, because what we're expecting and our high bar of acceleration, if you've been here the last 3 days, we 4 or 5 schools.
2 that we sent through.
Only 1 or 2 we have
Two,
sent.
maybe 3, but they've all had,
They've
you
had
know, substantial enrollment. They've already got a signed lease. The building's ready, you know, except for maybe 2 weeks worth of a modification.
They went to the
Yes.
meetings.
and they went to all the meetings. So I cannot. So I'm going to make a motion that we do not move this application ahead for acceleration.
Excuse me, could you tell us why? You said you can't, but I haven't heard your reasons why. To give us an opportunity. I mean, we're standing here, we're passionate. As I said, I'm from Pacoima County.
Right.
I repeated the 4th grade.
Yeah, and let me understand kind of how the process will work. First, we'll make a decision on whether we're going to recommend acceleration. And then after that, we'll make a decision on whether we're going to recommend the school to open, but just on a regular process, which would mean the school wouldn't open the fall of this year, it would open the fall of next year. So that's where we're at now. So it's kind of a 2-step process when you ask for acceleration. One, that we would make a recommendation on whether the school should accelerate or not, and the second one would be whether the school would open.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to understand her reasons. She sounds very adamantly about it, but I just wanted to understand, because this is so important to us, to help our children. Our children are failing. I know what it feels like to cry in the summer, because you know when you go back to school that everybody's going to know that you failed. And I know what that feels like, because I shed those tears. And I want to do everything. If I have to be the administrator, I'm licensed by the state of North Carolina. I will step in and I will be the administrator.
The school did not meet the criteria.
Which criteria?
Attending every one of the ready to open meetings, having facility with a certificate of occupancy. I mean, the ones we've gone through are either former schools or they've got their certificate of occupancy. Yeah, conversion. One's a conversion.
I think this board understands your passion and understands the need, but the bar is higher for the acceleration. You've got to have your ducks all in a row, and you haven't done that. So we're going to.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Has not been seconded.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and the motion is to not move the school forward for acceleration. So, are y'all back on?
Yeah, we're back in now.
All right, well, the telephone got unplugged. That's why y'all got kicked off.
Who besides Heather? Who else is that?
It's Heather and Alex. Heather and Alex are on the line. All right, so we have a motion and a second to not move the school forward for acceleration purposes only. Is there any further discussion or debate on that? And we've completed the question and answer session. We're out of time on that. So thank you. All right, hearing no discussion or debate, all in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
All right, all opposed? All right, the ayes have it on acceleration, and now we can move into a discussion of the application and the opening of the school. And I could kind of start off the discussion by saying I like this board. I like this board a lot, and I like the passion that the board brings, and I do like the fact that they're partnering in with a group that has had a lot of success with the demographic that they'd be working with in the school, and I like that. I feel a little bit better about the education plan than I did when I read the application. Having them explain that, because when I first read the application, what I thought we were going to do is I thought we were going to do all those things, and we were going to do a full implementation of every one of those plans together. And I was trying to figure out, how are you going to do Common Core, Core Knowledge, Think, Success Academy, how are you going to do all that together? But then after hearing from the board and understanding that what they're doing is they're using, when they see something good that works here, they're going to use it in this place. And when they see something good that works in that place, they're going to use it in that place. I think the documentation that they had submitted as far as clarification goes with the updated budget and those things, I think that answered a lot of my questions with both governance and capacity and the financial and budget plan. And I do think that on a normal schedule, that I think they'd be able to secure a facility and have everything ready in time. That's my initial thoughts, but the floor is open for any discussion or any motions.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be supporting this application, but the applicants have to understand they have to take that RTO responsibility seriously. You've got to get to those meetings. You've got to have board meetings there and be prepared to open. I mean, I don't think any of us here disagree on the need for this school of choice in Paquimins County or the strength of this board. But you got to do more than just express the passion. You're going to have to go to those meetings to take this seriously. So again, I'm going to be supporting the school.
I'll echo some of the sentiments already. The first two things I wrote down on my notes when you introduced yourself was the board had very impressive credentials, and your passion is very apparent. And those are two really, really important things. But there are a lot of other important things too when it comes into making this decision. I'd echo what Mr. Hawks says, those RTO meetings, you just got to be there. Otherwise, we could be here a year from now and you're going to want your final open and we won't be able, I wouldn't be able to approve it. I'm going to support moving forward for the application. It's not without hesitancy. I'm going to be honest. It's not without some hesitancy around the facilities. Also looking at the budget that we didn't really get to dive too much into here on our communication this morning. But I think with the extra additional time, any of those hesitancies that I have can be probably addressed over that time. I trust the partnership with Torchlight to help with that as well. So, but definitely hear your passion. All of us have been in that side of this table and expressed that same passion for schools that some that opened and some that didn't. But it takes more than just that passion too. But the passion drives you, and I have faith that you're going to do this.
Any other?
I would also like to mention this $36,000 for core teachers. I think you need to rethink that, and also the salary for your lead administrator, and find some savings in other parts of the budget. You're going to need a strong lead administrator for this school, and you're going to need to be able to pay these teachers. So I hope you all rethink that and make sure that you've got the personnel at this school to be able to address the needs of those kids, the real needs that we're all understanding, and we're with you on that. But you've got to be reality-based too, and that is a concern of mine right now. But especially getting to those RTO meetings conscientiously.
And to further that thought, Mr. Hawks, with a special population, an at-risk population, you might want to rethink the plan to use all beginning teachers or inexperienced teachers, because you're going to need the best of the best to help your students. And I am from the East. The East is so underrepresented in the charter world. I mean, if you cross 9540 and the map lights up with charter schools, you go to the east of that and we are few and far between, and we struggle. We all struggle. So we need some dynamic, powerful schools in the East, and I hope that you guys can do that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move Elaine Riddick Charter School forward for regular opening.
And I second that and want to make.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Ms. Kakadelis, Mrs. Kakadelis. You have floor for comments, and then we'll see if anybody on the phone has anything to say, and then anybody else in the room.
I'm moving this ahead for two reasons. Number one, the strength of your board. I have confidence that the board can pull this off. And the strength of your management company. I will have more, what can I say? Right now, it's almost like faith, which is not a bad thing, because I want to see the results of the other two schools that the management company is managing right now. And I'm just a little concerned. I don't want them to get overstretched with what is an urgent need. And we have the grant, the federal grant we've got right now, that if you exceed and do extremely well, we would like to see these schools all over the state. And I can't be more passionate. I believe the city councilman was not here.
He was subpoenaed to be in court.
Court, okay, all
Good
right.
excuse.
Ma'am?
Good excuse.
And I understand.
Yeah, I saw that in the clarification documents.
And just let me say this, because it was a statement we made at some schools yesterday, just for encouragement purposes. Does he bring racial diversity to your group?
What'd you say?
Racial diversity.
Oh.
Does your city councilman bring racial diversity to your group?
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Is he white?
Is he white?
Is
Oh, is he white?
Is he white?
Well, he lived in Germany for 13 years.
But let me just say this, and put this all on the table. Yesterday, and please come to the, because I want to make sure you understand what I'm saying. I don't care. I want kids to get educated. I don't care of what color, all right? But yesterday, this board made a very strong, compelling case for some boards that did not have racial diversity, that we told them that they must have, I mean, not must, but that we encourage them for racial diversity, just simply because we can learn from one another, and it just, the perception, more than anything, the perception. I don't care, because you're my brother, and man, let's get kids educated. But I was just saying that because of what was said yesterday, and I just wanted to know.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Kakadelis. We've got 30 seconds. Anybody on the phone have any questions?
He is.
Oh. But we're open to that.
Okay,
we understand. That's all we need.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
We're good.
And that's,
anybody on the phone have any?
That's what the other board said.
Yes.
One of the things that make our board unique is that a lot of us have exposure to international travel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I lived in Asia for quite some time. Dr. Dodo, Dr. Conan from West Africa, they lived in France, they lived in Italy. So a lot of traveling. April's lived in Germany as an Air Forceman for 13 years. And then he lived in Japan for 14 years. If he was going to claim ethnicity, and I don't know that he would like this, but because to him, there is no such thing. But to satisfy the board, he's what you would consider African American. But also, let me say this while I'm up here. I wish that enthusiasm would spread across the country, because there are many boards in North Carolina that are 100% white.
And
many of them. I wish that enthusiasm would be implemented in the schools. Only 6% of teachers in the country are black. Only 1% of teachers in Paquimins County, I'm sorry, are black.
All right.
So I think that this is a fair question, but to answer your question, he's African American.
Okay, I just am making that statement because of what happened yesterday.
I'm going to cut
But
this
I just
off.
wanted to clarify that we're open to that.
No,
We're done.
don't kill the golden goose here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Enough. I'm going to bring a gavel in. And it's going to be a real big one so everybody can hear it. All right? We have to have some order in here.
Sure.
All right? So, sorry. But, and that was brought up because that was brought up yesterday, and that's why it was brought up, and it was for the point that you were making. And anybody on the phone have anything that they want to say?
No, I'm good.
All right, Heather, anything?
I'm ready to move on.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion or debate? The motion is to move the school forward in the regular ready to open process. Hearing no discussion or debate, all in favor, raise their hand or say aye.
Aye.
On the phone?
Aye.
All right, aye from Alex, aye from Heather. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We look forward to great things.
Yes.
All right.
At the risk of falling behind, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. Listen.
In December, it might in October, and goes through about February. Next year's RTO stuff right now. Next year.
You will probably be glad you got that.
Thank you.
I don't have it. Thank you.
Bring the soup. I have one more. I meant to refill this morning,
Or you can give me the water.
I'm the last one. I'm the superintendent. So I have to get them out there to visit and get up and get things going.
We really, really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Let me get here before the students.
Congratulations.
And what's your name again?
My name's Hawks.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great treat to have. It's the most important treat to have. And my jacket is You stole this pen. Right, just.
I stole it from the hospital. I'll put the name back here.
Sure.
Shake some more.
Yeah.
Grandma is proud. Thank you so much.
Hope to see great things
You will.
out there in the women's and basketball.
Yes.
I keep everything in my suit jacket. Since I wore a sweater today, I didn't wear my suit jacket. So I just had to borrow a pen.
Let's get together.
We will. I have, and I'm in Raleigh all the time.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
We will get to the meeting.
Sounds good.
Congratulations.
But thanks again.
You're welcome, and you got a charter. It'll go true.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
You know that.
Okay, and so as long as we get to you, congratulations and report. I'm in dissertation. I'm good. I'm in the stage, so I've been there. Congratulations, yeah, absolutely. Except for this, because this is, I'm half shy, I say, guys, program, I wanna do this.
If not, I'll.
Do you recommend 2 or 3 or? Yes. Okay. I'll just, be there.
This is Miss Public School Choice right here.
I mean, I am.
Nobody on this board has more choice of.
And that's what we need too. So is it okay if we call you? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right here, you still, okay.
Look, look.
No.
That was mellow, no.
Okay, we'll be
The trail mix fairly dropped by.
Good, good.
Oh, thank you.
Good stuff.
Trail mix fairy.
I haven't seen.
You're a doctor, though.
I am a doctor.
I can't always remember everybody that's a doctor, so you never go wrong saying doctor.
They never get tired of hearing it.
No.
No, especially if you actually learned it.
As hard as you work to get that.
That's true.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started.
Not that I know, because I wouldn't even think about it.
Do we have? Okay. The applicant coming before the board today is Lighthouse Charter. They're proposing to locate in Greene County. The proposed grade levels and projected student enrollment are as follows. Year 1, K through 4, 120 students. Year 2, K through 5, 156 students. Year 3, K through 6, 203 students. Year 4, K through 7, 264 students. Year 5, K through 8, 342 students. We do have an LEA impact statement for this application. We did not have due diligence completed. Pass-fail ratings are as follows. Mission, purposes, and goals, 3 pass, 2 fail. Education plan, 1 pass, 4 fail. Governance and capacity, 1 pass, 4 fail. Operations, 4 pass, 1 fail. Finance, 1 pass, 4 fail. This applicant is requesting an accelerated open. They are not a repeat applicant. They did receive assistance from Torchlight Academy Schools, and they do intend to partner with that management company. In regards to RTO participation, Lighthouse Charter had 1 registrant in November, but no one attended the session. They did have representation at the October and the December RTO sessions. You will have 3 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you. You can just introduce yourself and who you've got with you.
All right, how you doing? All right, my name is Kevin Shepard. I'm the board chair. With me to my right, I have Ms. Jennifer Darden. She's the secretary on my board. I have Mr. Dorian Edwards. He's the educator on the board. I have Ms. Ayana Whitfield and Ms. Letitia Scott, and they are both working together with the treasurer and the budget as well. Just to clarify, we've attended. We've had representatives at all of the meetings, because I've attended every one of them. And I've had a couple of my boards to attend with me. So I don't know if that was a day where we might have didn't sign in, but we've been to each and every one of the RTO trainings. Okay. As well, our board was represented before the council on December 12th to determine whether our school would move forward as an accelerated school. Prior to that hearing, external reviewers reviewed the initial application submitted through the portal under the North Carolina General Statute 115C-218.2A. We were notified of incomplete information and permitted 5 business days to correct those issues. We submitted timely corrections. In addition, we were allowed to submit clarification documents 7 days prior to the December 2018 hearing. At the hearing, it became apparent that external reviewers did not consider our timely submitted documents. It also did not appear the council had our clarification documents. It is our understanding that NC General Statute 115C-218.2A provides that equal consideration shall be given, which we know you guys would do that. That's not a doubt at all, to our application since our documents were timely submitted. We request the council disregard external reviewer comments to give effect to general statute, require that equal consideration be given. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce who you've got with you?
He did. He
Oh, I'm
introduced
sorry,
them.
I must have missed
You want me to
that.
introduce again?
If they would
No,
like to
no,
introduce them.
we're good.
Okay, you want to go straight to the,
You go ahead.
okay.
It's all you.
All right, we're gonna have questions
Sure.
from the full board now, and let's start with, does anyone want to just have any discussion over the mission, vision, or, I'm jumping around, education plan?
Don't jump around, go straight.
Hmm?
Go straight.
Go straight? Okay. Looking at the mission and vision, is there any comments on that or questions on that from my colleagues?
Real quick.
This kind of mixes the mission with the goal. Part of the mission is parental involvement. How are they going to measure that?
Okay. So how are you going to measure your parental involvement?
Okay. Well, we're going to develop what we call a parental advisory council board. That board will meet with our board at a minimum of 2 times, of twice a year. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that that's all it's going to be, because we will also throughout the school year provide parents with the opportunity to volunteer. There's a program that Torchlight brought to us called the grandparent program, where they can come in and volunteer their services, but it's a contracted services. As well, regular PTA meetings. We will even allow our we will open up the board and allow our parents to even to apply to be on our board as well. Those are just a few ways that we intend to promote partnership with the parents.
And how will you measure that?
How you think we will measure that? Speak to that, Dorian, if you don't mind.
Good morning. We will also utilize surveys and any other means to engage parents to show how they feel about being involved. What can we do better to get them more involved if they're not, or and of course more surveys. Thank you so much.
My question is survey. When I looked at I think it was Appendix A1 for educational needs, it was a chart of the proficiency for Greene County.
Yes.
What type of parental survey do you have data for?
Parental survey as far as?
As far as?
Well, we have, when we first introduced the idea of bringing a charter school to Greene County through social media, do we have, I think we have some printouts here as far as comments that we have from parents that provided, that gave input. As well, we had a public forum on August the 30th. I think that's what day it was. And we had about, what, 60? Here's a sign-in sheet if you guys like to look at it. And we have the agenda for that forum as well.
In that forum, did you collect data on, so there's, you know, I'm interested in a school in Greene County, because Lord knows we need a charter choice in your area. But I don't have children that I could put in your school next year in the K-4 realm.
Right.
Do you have any kind of data that shows potential students for 1920 in the K-4?
We don't have that as of, yet. There are some things that we're still looking to do. We're going to have additional forms and an additional surveys, as Doreen pointed out. A lot of the energy that we spent, of course, was getting ready to open. Now, we've had a lot of good input from the community. I'm from Greene County. Well, let me rephrase that. I went to school in Greene County. Both of my parents grew up in Greene County. My mom was a teacher in Greene County. I graduated from Greene Central High School in 2000. My dad's church is in Greene County. And my children goes to Greene County schools right now. One of my children does. And on a day-to-day basis, I'm always hearing from parents about the need for choice, and that a lot of them just aren't happy with the progress made, not just from the black students either, because I believe white kids are only about 64% proficient in Greene County, as minorities are sitting at about 35% proficient. That progress, so those demographics there, as well as what I get on a day-to-day basis of hearing people talk, because I'm in Greene County all the time. To say that I have actually a data right here in front of you to give you, I don't at the moment, but it would not be a problem getting that for you.
So Greene County Schools obviously sent an impact statement saying how that if you guys started the school and built the school, how it would adversely affect the county, county's educational budget. Your thoughts?
I'm sure it would. Greene County is not a big county.
And with that, are you going to pull from Lenoir? And
we're going to pull from Lenoir. Lenoir is Lenoir, Pitt, Wayne, or about 20 minutes. Greene County is right in the middle of all those counties.
Surrounded by those three.
As well, my board, we have my board from some from Pitt County as well, that are from there as well, and their kids go to Pitt County schools. We'll be able to pull from those schools as well, not just Greene County. However, majority will come from Greene County. I mean, when you look at Greene County School District was ranked 185th out of 203, about 200 districts. I can understand how it would adversely affect them, but if you look at their numbers, I appreciate Greene County districts. I came from there. But when there's a serious issue that needs to be addressed, you just got to do what you got to do.
If you were, let me ask just a few questions on that, all having to do with the enrollment. How many, do you have like any letters of intent from parents saying that, yes, I will send my kid there? I
don't have letters yet.
Okay.
But again, my ties with Greene County are deep, and I have many parents that's reached out and was like, look, we're very interested in this school. I've even had some to say they will be bringing them, but I don't have a letter of intent right now.
And that's important for acceleration.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other question that was like that, you listed all four LEAs there, Greene, Lenoir, Pitt, and Wayne, which, I've been to Greene County a lot of times, been to Snow Hill a lot of times. And so I know that, you can access all those counties pretty quickly. I guess the question I have is, in your calculations that you did, you did one LEA, you did Greene County only. What was the rationale behind, in the application listing that all the students?
Because the need is there.
Right.
That's the
But
primary focus.
And I guess that was my question. You were talking about pulling from these other counties
Yes,
as
sir.
well, but you didn't seem to estimate how many counties you might pull from those districts. So when we talk about an LEA impact statement, if your application says we're going to pull all our students from Greene County, then Greene County looks at that. And although I can't remember ever reading an LEA impact statement where they were like, yay, go charter. But, when you do that, if you were actually, you've got, I believe it's 120 students, if 80 of those were from Greene County and 20 were from Pitt and 20 from Lenoir, then it has a different impact on Greene County. But the application says, Greene County is all 120, and so that's why I've got the confusion here.
But, and let me ask
Gotcha.
this, have you read the impact statement from the LEA?
I haven't read it. Myself, I had no knowledge of that impact statement.
Okay.
Now, let's be clear. I've been in Greene County for a while, so I've heard the chatter. I will say that. I've heard the chatter. And I get the looks. We've had phone calls, so I don't doubt that one, at all.
Now, you live in Lenoir County right now.
I live in Lenoir County, but
So do y'all have a board member that lives in Greene County?
no, we don't. The reason why we don't have a board member that lives in Greene County because I spend all of my time in Greene County.
Your job is in Greene County.
No, my job isn't in Greene County. My wife works in Greene County. Actually, my wife works she's an administrator for Greene County Intermediate School. My mom is a retired teacher from Greene County. So we know the ins and outs of the needs there.
Why didn't you choose Lenoir then? If you live in Lenoir, Lord knows Lenoir needs a good charter school.
Well, they have one.
I know. Children's
But
Village.
yeah, Children's Village Academy. But our passion is Greene County. And the facility, we have a facility that's ready to open. We have a certificate of occupancy. They're actually, it was in the application. I think you guys, have you seen the pictures? Okay.
The former church.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it already has an education certificate of occupancy?
Yes.
For school?
For school. At that, they had a summer program, and they had an after-school program that they ran for several years. They're no longer doing it now, but they did run it, and they have a state-of-the-art kitchen that was federal and state approved. They have computers.
And I may be mistaken here, but you can run an after-school program without an education occupancy
Apparently
certificate.
so.
So you can have all those programs without an education one.
Gotcha.
Are
Okay.
you sure you have the education?
I have a certificate of occupancy. That's what I have. I can't. Okay, it's not education. My board corrected me. It's not, so I apologize. Yeah.
Okay.
Is this facility is this a stopgap for the first year, or is this something you see yourself as your enrollment grows, that you grow into it?
Yeah, we're gonna grow. Well, for the first at least 4 to 5 years, at least we see for now, we see ourselves being there. But we have talks about building, hopefully one day, but not actually keeping the school there, forever. But right now, that's a good place to start.
Okay.
It's one of the bigger buildings in Greene County.
Well, the purpose of my question is in the application, it says it's 6,000 square feet.
No, actually, that's a misprint. That's actually approximately about 12,000 square feet. No, 10 to 12,000 square feet. And we have a letter from the owner that certifies that, if you guys like to look at that, it's approximately, that's a little over 10,000 square feet.
So the entire building is 12,000 square feet?
Yes, sir. It has about 5 classrooms in it. It has a full court basketball gym. It has a theatrical stage. It has a state-of-the-art kitchen that was used for the summer program. It has office space.
I asked the question because part of the process you're going to have to go through to get your educational certificate of occupancy is how many square footage do you have per student. And at 12,000, I mean, you're probably going to be okay in years 1 or 2, but when you get up, as I look at your numbers in years 3, 4, and 5,
Okay.
that's that doesn't mean you can't.
Well, we plan to move in modular units as well on the campus to accommodate the growth.
Do we have any more questions from the board considering acceleration, that aspect of this charter? Okay, let's move ahead. Let's go to the education plan. Have any questions on that?
I want a board member to explain to me what the curriculum's gonna be, how, the literacy program looks, how the mathematics looks. I wanna make sure that the board understands. And the reason I say that with the board is because I know the application was written by, Torchlight as your, CMO. It's the same plan that they submitted for all of the schools. So I just need to feel like, I need to feel confident that the board has an understanding of what this ed plan looks like for your students.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning once again. My name is Dorian Edwards. And as far as the education plan is concerned, we understand that we will follow the North Carolina course of study as it relates to all subjects and preparing the kids. As stated in the application, there are several tools that we will use, and not using all of them at the same time, but kind of sort of taking what we feel is the best from each one to accommodate our students.
So your curriculum for literacy, do you know what that, have you identified that?
No, ma'am, we have not identified that, but what we have done is we have, talked about that, and what we want to do is when the lead administrator comes in, as well as, as teachers are hired, we would like for them to have a voice or a say-so in what they will be teaching for their students.
Could you run through what a day would look like at your school? Because you talked about intimate class discussions, and I mean, what would be the time frame like for literacy and other core subjects?
Daily schedule.
So a particular day could look like this, and of course we know that there is a lot of time between now and the time for school to open, so it could be subject to change. But what a day could look like is from 7:45 to 8:10. You could arrive, do morning work from 8:10 to 9:05. There be instruction from 9:05 to 10 o'clock. You could have more instruction or extracurricular class with bathrooms, snack break. More instruction from, let's say, 10 o'clock to 12:10. From 12:10 to 12:40, we're looking at lunch. 12:40 to 2:10, more instruction. 2:10 to 2:40, a recess in there with dismissal at 2:50.
As well, speak to that as well. We also have been discussing bringing just like an after school program, but also a before school program, depending on what the parental needs are for our students.
Is that in your budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you say you're gonna have 80 minutes a day of, no more than 80 minutes a day of direct instruction. Leaves many hours left. What does the rest of that, you listed it as instructional time, but what does that time look like?
In some cases, that time will be left up to the teachers, as well as the lead administrators to figure out what they want to do in that time. Of course, there are so many things that could happen during that time, and as a board, I don't necessarily feel comfortable saying, all right, this is what you're going to do with that time. There's opportunities to engage and talk and discuss and figure out what would be the best for the students in which we're going to serve.
But you understand that the majority of the day is being left open to that time, so that's a big deal. Like if it's a 7-hour day and only 80 minutes of it is direct instruction, the rest of it can't just be, well, we'll figure it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Obviously, there would be more than just 80 minutes. of direct
The application
instruction.
says there'll be no more than 80 minutes of direct instruction.
So that could very well be a misinterpretation or a misstatement. We were thinking 80 minutes per per block. Yes, ma'am. So my apologies there. I thank you for raising that concern.
Okay, any other questions on the education plan?
What, the students are behind, they're at risk.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the daily plan for remediation? Is that built into that schedule? Could you talk about, the MTSS process and the level 1 students, level 2, level 3, so forth? How is that intervention built into the class time, the daily schedule?
Yes, ma'am. So I actually had an opportunity to serve in the Lenoir County School District. I was a teacher, 7th grade math at Rochelle Middle School. And typically what we've done there is we've given opportunities for that remediation to happen maybe during extracurricular classes. We've given opportunities for that to happen before school, or we've also given opportunities for that to happen after school. Or even Saturday school. So there will definitely be opportunities for remediation for those students.
And you budgeted that for your teachers, because I think isn't the teacher salary low on this one too?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing.
36 call.
So who, before school, after school, is that the certified teachers that are going to provide that remediation? Do you have that built into the budget for them to get extra pay because their pay is already very low?
Yes, ma'am. We will love to enlist parental and community involvement in the help.
So more volunteer?
Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here for.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Would like to speak to the budget very quickly. Sorry about that, sir. But
No, that's fine.
from what I understand, there is a $120,000 surplus built into the budget.
So if we need to adjust salaries.
You definitely need to adjust salaries.
Yeah. So to adjust salaries, that $120,000 surplus is sitting there for whatever the needs are. As well, we still plan on, to apply for additional grants. We plan to raise money through book fairs, through fundraisers, just like a regular public school will. We plan to do that. We're not very keen on an instructional fee, as public schools do, but
Yeah,
that's on the table.
you can only do instructional fees if the LEA also does instructional fees.
And Greene County does instructional.
They do? Wow.
Because I pay them every day. I mean, every year.
That's amazing.
Wow.
All right, Alex.
Oh, I wasn't here for the discussion about this similar ed plan on for the last school. I would just like somebody to. There's a lot of different components here, and I would like someone to kind of articulate how we're gonna weave all these pieces together. The Success Academy approach, Teach Like a Champion, the STEM components. There was a lot of different things kind of referenced at a surface level, and how do we make all these things mesh?
Could you repeat the last part again, sir?
I said these things were kind of touched on at a surface level.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm not sure, I'm not convinced that these pieces are going to be able to be effectively woven together.
Yes, sir.
To form
Well,
a cohesive.
to that, of course, again, I'll say we will, through this process, once we're approved, if we're approved, we'll continue talks with the lead administrator, we'll continue talks with the teachers, but we will also lean on our partnership with Torchlight Academy, who has been able to successfully interweave or interject and bring all of these programs together for the success that they've seen in their schools.
Okay, so could maybe someone, so for example, how how are we going to use, what components of Success Academy's program are we going to use and how?
So today I cannot speak to how we're going to use those and how we'll implement them, but I know that we can, and there's a want to do that.
To be clear, the curriculum that we're using is going to be the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. And I know even when we submit it to our clarification in the education plan, you do see Common Core Standards and Core Knowledge Sequence referred to as standards, not curriculum, okay? There are standards from those curriculums that we will look at using. Like Core Knowledge Sequence, to the core of Core Knowledge Sequence, they look at basically specific and dealing with what needs to know. What does a child need to know, as opposed to what's out there. For instance, there are hundreds of dates of things that's happened throughout history. Core knowledge says, well, although that's true and it's important, these are these are the dates that they really need to know. Teach Like a Champion speaks to techniques. One in particular that I like that Dr. Limov spoke to in Teach Like a Champion, where it says, let your board be your paper. Basically, whatever is on the board needs to be on the paper. It also has another technique called no opt-out, which doesn't give a child the opportunity to, when asked the question, to say, well, I don't know. What the teacher would do is review what was taught and to help the child come up with an answer. And there are several more techniques, as we know, with Teach Like a Champion, that speaks to classroom participation and classroom management and student participation. I believe that is the core of any teacher. You want to have your classroom management, and you want all your students to participate. And Teach Like a Champion helps very much with that. I hope that answers some of your questions, sir.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess the success stuff was just referenced a couple times, and I was just kind of really trying to see to what extent that's been, deeply investigated.
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
The Success Academy components was referenced a number of times. How are we gonna do this?
How are we going to implement those processes?
Sure, because you also referenced the curriculum outline as a core knowledge curriculum outline. Which do we know which one we're going to do? Or are we talking about? Are we just going to do shared text, shared poem? Or are we doing I'm just trying to see, do we really know what we're talking about here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I guess we could say, sure, the principals, but if you hire a principal's going to look at this ed plan and say,
I totally understand. Yes,
what
sir.
do I need to do?
So our view of curriculum embraces 4 distinct components, including standards, content, instructional methods, teaching strategies, and assessments. We reference the North Carolina Course of Study. We reference Common Core Standards, and we also reference Core Knowledge Sequence. These standards are individual learning objectives, and we will draw the standards from each of these programs together. Our Core Knowledge Sequence will also provide selected content materials. The charter application, we did not explicitly identify all sources of content materials, such as SchoolNet or online resources that are offered and so forth. We referenced, like you said earlier, Teach Like a Champion. We referenced Success Academy charter schools, and these are instructional methods, teaching strategies that are illustrative of what we propose to do at the charter school. It is not our intent to replicate the school. We just want to illustrate a few instructional methods or teaching strategies that will be used by our teachers and included in our professional development. Success Academy charter schools, they publish a free online portal that helps schools incorporate components of their program that has been an integral part to their tremendous success. Their charter schools also incorporate elements of Teach Like a Champion. It is noted that we plan to create economies of scale by conducting joint professional development with our sister charter schools with whom we share costs. The management company with whom we partner, they bring an abundance of professional development resources with low financial cost. For example, the management company, they have personnel that have mastered Mel Sieberman's 101 active learning strategies to teach any subject, and will provide this training to teachers as a standard part of relationship.
Will Torchlight provide like summer orientation training? How will that work? Maybe Mr. McQueen wants to clarify.
Well, we're a partner, so we're also partner with their
Is it
board.
going to be like a
Mentoring.
Is it be like a network, or will folks come to Raleigh for their training in the summer?
We'll come here. They'll come to us.
Yes, sir.
We're going to make this work. They'll be like our mentor.
Yeah, I think the challenge that I'm getting at is, I think, and I would say this about the previous school. I was not here. I would have said it. I feel like the ed plan is a lot of ideas, but it's not cohesive in the sense that there's gonna be a lot of work to basically. If you gave me this, I would have a lot of questions about: are we doing guided reading? To what extent? Are we doing readers workshop, writers workshop? Which parts of Success's plan are we pulling from? So I think they're going to need a lot of whoever is the person that's actually running this. And Mr. McQueen, maybe you guys have all the answers to these questions, and you're going to be able to tell them. I don't know. It seems like, and I think that's why it has 4 fails, is because it doesn't clearly lay out kind of what the implementation is going to look like, because there's certain components of Success's stuff that you could cherry pick some of it, and there's aspects of it that you can't. How you actually train people in the Teach Like a Champion techniques that really determines whether or not it works. You can everybody gives people the book. Hey, read this.
Yes, sir.
So I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I think there's a lot of work to be done with where it is now. It doesn't seem like to me, it's not as clear as if, I was a principal. Now, maybe, hey, you get somebody that can just knows this stuff and can run with it, but I would like to see a more developed plan that has a clear vision for your board and for your principal to do. It's easier on the ground level once the school's up and operating. Maybe through a revision, maybe spending more time at Torchlight and articulating exactly what's happening there in a more clear way would help strengthen this. I don't know if Mr. McQueen wants to comment.
Yes. Sure. Thank you.
How does STEAM fit into all of this? How does STEAM fit into all of this?
How does STEAM fit into all this? What we've done is we've taken many of the best practices that we're seeing out there today. When we are working at SMA, we use a lot of technical reading or scientific reading for even our elementary students in order to develop an acumen for that kind of reading and that kind of testing, because usually there's informational text. So we start to build in certain skills right through kindergarten. And so that's a way STEAM could fit into this. We'll go out and source some individual practitioners that are involved in our community that have technical skills. Are you working in the technical field right now, Dorian? What is your profession right now?
I'm actually, I serve as a campus coordinator for a nonprofit bone marrow organization.
Yeah, but I think it was someone in our organization that advisory board member that was involved in technology, that kind of thing. So we're going to draw from that. So what we've found, Alex, in terms of trying to work out the precise methodology, you've been in schools long enough, you have an idea, and you start to kind of go down that road with some of the professional developments, and you look to see what works. At one time, we were involved heavily with DTADLOC and ReadWrite, and it was a tremendous program. It really worked, but it wasn't testing out. the students weren't able to comprehend. They were able to read, but they weren't able to comprehend. And so we found, wait a minute, we have to make some adjustments there. And then so we extracted some of those practices and kept using that, and it did improve our reading scores. And so as a practitioner and as I said earlier, as a practice, we may have to make some modifications. You know, you go to the doctor, says take 3 aspirin, and he finds out, no, you need Motrin and not naproxen. So some of those things are important to be able to make some adjustments. Yes, ma'am.
At this point, we're talking multiple schools, and this isn't, and what I'm hearing you saying is we're still figuring out what we're going to do, but there's at least 3 schools right now doing something.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are they doing?
Yes, ma'am. So here's what we're doing, Cheryl. We are using mainly data-driven instruction. Our teachers develop data points throughout the week, and they use exit tickets at the end of a lesson, and then an assessment, a formative assessment at the end of the week. And from that, we can pretty much predict, and our data has predicted within 1 point of what we will receive on our end of grade test, within 1 point. And we can look from that data and determine which teachers are strongest in reading, which teachers are weakest in math. And so what we've done is we find that if a teacher is strong in math, then the students are strong in math, and vice versa with reading. So we move those students, or we move those teachers in front of students that are struggling, because it's really not the student, it's the teacher that's struggling. And so those are the kinds of things we use as ways to manage the results that we're trying to achieve. Yes, ma'am.
You know,
I'm gonna go.
just given the success of the schools that you're operating with now,
Yes,
why
sir.
didn't you lay that detail out more in the education plan itself? I think that would have helped answer a lot of the questions. Here's what we've done successfully, here's how we have done it, and here are the results.
Yeah,
think
I
that
can
would've
give
really
like a real
strengthened
specific
the
example because
application.
I've heard people talk about y'all's morning meeting,
Yes.
right? And so I think that's something at Torchlight that works. And I understand the desire to allow schools to have some autonomy, but when we're replicating models, we're talking about scaling.
Yes.
You know, you actually have to peel back in my opinion, in experience doing some of this, you know, and seeing it done well.
Yes, sir.
In some situations and not well in others. One of the hardest things to decide is what are the non-negotiables, and how are we going to peel back the number of decisions that the replicating school has to make and just dial in those things that work. So maybe morning meeting, you know, even to the level of detail saying, you know, as a Torchlight school, like here's one of the things, we're all going to have a morning meeting, it's going to run this way, and it sets the culture and tone for the school.
Yes, sir.
We're all going to do guided reading because that's part of the Success Academy model. We're going to do it in this way.
Yes,
and
sir.
we're going to do it for minimum, you know, guided reading block in grades K-2 for 90 minutes. Like that type of clarity and really defining those things, I think is helpful for the school when you're replicating.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I think there are things happening